I don't know why it's not going. Okay, let's 2 minutes pour Insta. Hello, everybody. I think we are online on YouTube and Facebook, and of course, as usual, we have a problem with Instagram. No, we are okay. We are online on Instagram as well. So, welcome everybody to our fourth conference panel about global and international science fiction and fantasy. This panel will be about visual art, so it will be more visual than literary for once. And we have two guests. For now, we have one, Joan. I will let you yourself introduce yourself in a while. So for our viewers, it's our series of conferences is organized by Hikaya, the French publishing house, in collaboration with Les Intergalactiques, the science fiction festival in Lyon, France. We tackled a different subject. We had two Italian writers and one French Algerian writer talking about cultural heritage and literary heritage. We had the issue of organizing science fiction festivals. And then we had last time on Tuesday two Arab writers. And today the topic will be visual art, as I've said. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's watching us tonight, and I want to say that we are all non-native English speakers. So if you don't understand, you can ask questions and be indulgent with us. And secondly, you can ask questions about the topic. So first of all, I will give the word to Joan to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Davide, and thank you to Romain for the organization. I'm so glad to be here with you, and thank you so lot for the people who are watching us right now. So just in a few words, my name is Joan Grandjean. I'm like in between some affiliation right now, but I'm finishing my PhD at the Arabic Studies section at the University of Geneva, Switzerland. And so I started this PhD thesis in 2017. It's in French and it's entitled Essai des futurismes arabes en histoire de l'art, which can be translated in English by What if imagining the history of contemporary art through Arab futurisms. This is not the correct translation, but I like how it sounds in English because it's like it questions another way of writing art history through an aesthetic. And so so I'm studying the use of science fiction in the Arab contemporary art scene, and I decided to. So I'm finishing this PhD right now, and I will defend it in 2 months. So after that, it will be a whole new life. So I'm a researcher, and I also founded some initiative in Switzerland and in France. For example, in Switzerland, we with some colleagues, we founded Manazir, which is a Swiss platform for the study of visual art, architecture, and heritage in the MENA region. By MENA, we mean Middle East and North Africa. And so we founded this academic journal named Manazir Journal because it lacks in the field these kind of topics and disciplines. It was always hard, to put our field of research in traditional art history. That's why we decided to focus more through an area study, even if it's more. It's not fixed, And in France, I'm working with the team of Arvim, which is a group of research based in Paris, named Art visuel du Maghreb et du Moyen-Orient 19e, 21e siècle, which is also we are kind of the only group in France dealing with these topics. If you're lucky and if you want to join us in Paris, we will give a seminar on art and visual art in the MENA region starting next January. So that's it for me.
Cool. We were supposed to have another guest, but I think there's a problem with Howard because he's from Colombia. I think he's currently in Chile. So we will see him pop out at some moment. So we will start our presentation without him, and I hope he will join very soon. So first of all, this panel will be a little bit different because it will be mostly a presentation of Joan and Luis' work. So I will give you the space to introduce your work and your researches about about your the subject you tackle in your thesis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Davide. So tell me if it's working. I'm just pressing the button for the presentation.
Yes.
Well, I think it's working.
Yes, it's on the scene.
Okay, perfect. So, well, the title is not very original. It's the title of my PhD, but we don't care about the title, to be honest. I wanted to present to you a small overview of the different artworks, the different subjects, and the different artists that are dealing with this new aesthetic, and I don't like to call it an aesthetic. I prefer naming it a research area, to be honest, because it's sometimes very confusing with artists and people who are talking about Arab futurism. That's why I put them into, and I don't remember the name in English. I want to say bracket, but it's not bracket, it's guillemets, Ethan. Because it's quite a difficult concept or notion, and it has to be taken with delicacy. So, but it's easier when I'm talking about this subject to people who don't know that much to just have this word. So by Arab futurism, just take into account the fact that some artists want to have some interest about the representation of future or the adaptation of science fiction in visual art. When I started doing this research, I wanted to give like a small chronology, and I don't know why it's in gray because it was not on the PowerPoint. I hope you can read it, but it's an attempt. It's not a fixed chronology. It's an outline. But what is important is at the beginning of the 2000s, there was like a phenomenon in contemporary art, the globalization of contemporary art, and so at the early 2000s, cultural diplomacy and also global museum wanted to highlight new trends, new ways of seeing contemporary art in the world. I'm sure you heard about the trend at the late 90s about Chinese contemporary art. At the early 2000s, there was contemporary Arab art. It was in a way also to respond to first the terrorist attack of the 9/11, and also how to give new visibility to a region with a bad reputation. So a lot of the institutions started to present and to show Arab contemporary artists, but these artists, it's not that they were not existing before. They were existing, but there was no visual, not an echo about their work on a global perspective.
Was it more a, sorry if I'm interrupting you, was it more like on a local range?
It was on a local branch, and also there was an international network, but it was not that strong. For example, in Lebanon, since the 90s, you have museum and cultural center, and even before the civil war in Lebanon. So these, for example, the first association of contemporary artists in Lebanon was created in 1993. In 1993, you have also the the rehabilitation of the I don't know the term, but the royal I don't know the term in the Jordan National Gallery, who decided to open a contemporary art section and to work on that, and it was quite interesting. Anyway, so in the 90s, stuff was existing, but white people didn't know about that, and
Yeah.
so there was like this new not trend, but kind of opening to, and people wanted to present artwork from other regions. And so for contemporary art, it was quite strange, because at the beginning, like for example, Western institutions wanted to know more about this region. So their comments was more about documenting what was happening there, more than having an experimental approach to contemporary art.
Yeah.
So funding were directed into a documentary vein, presenting a lot of photographers and cineasts, etc., etc. But what's interesting is some artists in these years wanted also to show other things. They didn't agree about the cultural politics at that time, and it's interesting because in 20 for example, in 2009, Larissa Sansour, a Palestinian artist living in London, made a video called Space Exodus, and presented Palestine in a new vein. It was no longer a documentary approach about Palestinians, no more a victimization approach about Palestine. And when I'm saying a victimization, it's not that people thought they were victims, but this is how Western institutions wanted to present it. So
So
by
she broke this Orientalistic vision of
Yeah,
Middle
we can
East.
call it neo-Orientalism. It's
Okay.
totally neo-Orientalism. And so with Space Exodus, it's very interesting. I will show you pictures after that. She filmed herself during 6 minutes, disguised as a Palestinote, an astronaut from Palestine, and traveling to the moon to put the Palestinian landscape on the moon. And it's quite simple. But it's quite strong, because it means that Palestine as a nation can also do what other countries did before, etc., etc. So at that time, you had Wafa Hourani also. He is a Palestinian artist who created mock-up, architectural mock-up of Kalandia, the checkpoint, but also the city, and put it 100 years after the Nakba, 100 years after the 1970s, 1967 is the Naksa, and also after 100 years after the first Intifada, etc., etc. So this is like a first round of artists decided to respond to how contemporary art was perceived and how they wanted to just react about it. And it's interesting how by using science fiction it worked, because it penetrates, yes, we can say that, Western contemporary art, global contemporary art institutions.
So science fiction is a door to
Mm.
more.
Kind of a door, yeah, or maybe a cheval de Troie, a Troy horse.
Yes.
So with the Arab revolutions, that starting in 2010, a new approach was made, because at that time, people were infused with revolution ideas, but also dystopical, dystopian ideas, and also how they were looking for how we can approach new futures, how we can change some governments, some countries, some societies, etc., etc. And so this is the second part of that speech. And the third one is when artists, so starting at 2015, when artists decided to embrace science fiction from the beginning of their career and wanted to create only through science fiction. So and now I will go to some examples to show you pictures of these artists, if you don't mind, or maybe you have a question.
I do not have. Does the public have questions? I will just look up if we have questions. Nope, not so far. Not so far.
Let's move on. So I just wanted to say this is not a fixed chronology. It's a tool. It's a tool because global contemporary art, Arab revolutions are not done yet. It's still in process. And so some category can also work together. It depends. But it's only to show you some I don't know how to say that, guidelines. So when I first encountered SF through contemporary Arab art, it was through Larissa Sansour. And with this video, I talked to you about a space exodus. I remember I was 18 at that time, and it was funny because I was hanging around in the subway in Paris, and I just saw the poster. I don't know if you can see my remote.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I cannot see the remote.
So the image on the left. So I was in the metro, and I just crossed this image on the left, and it was like, what is that? Palestine in the moon. And I was so not shocked, but very surprised. And so it was the poster of a great exhibition at the Institut du Monde Arabe, the Arab World Institute, named Palestine, la création dans tous ses états, the creation in all, I don't know how to translate, but
it's
yes, but it doesn't mean anything in English. There is you can play with état in French. It means states as a nation, and also a state of mind. And so this was the only artwork in the show dealing with science fiction, and it's so funny because they decided to print a poster with this image.
It's very speaking. I mean, it talks a lot.
It's a great picture. It's a great image. It's very strong. It's also very smooth. It's not aggressive. It's not. When I was talking about victimization, it's we were so used when we were young, and still today, with pictures of Palestinian people suffering and ruins and cities destroyed by Israel, etc., etc. And with this image, you don't have that.
Yes, you feel hope more than victimization. So a future for people.
So I was quite surprised, and so I was young at that time, so I just put that in my mind. And in 2015, when I was living in Lebanon, I was working at the Arab Image Foundation in Beirut, and so the Arab Image Foundation is a space in which we were archiving photographies made in the Arab world. And we hosted a contemporary art show named Space Between Our Fingers. And this show was curated by Rachel Deadman, a British curator living in Beirut at that time. And so it was so interesting because this show was the first one I went, and it was all about science fiction and the Arab world. So there was this video, there was other videos. I don't have the time to show it to you. It was At the beginning, it was only a 10 minutes presentation. Now it will be an hour.
Yeah.
But no, let's move on. Let's move on, and I will show you other things. So no, I just wanted to read that quote because Larissa Sansur is a very interesting artist. And in 2016, she had this interview with Nat Muller, which is a curator, and she also did a great PhD thesis on speculative art in the Middle East. And so Larissa Sansur, so Nat Muller asked Larissa, why are you using science fiction? And she responded, the more I worked with fiction, the more people started reacting to what I was saying. In a way, I realized that there is something about sci-fi that really resonates well with the Palestinian problem. Because what happened in Palestine is that it kind of rendered Palestinians in the state of limbo, with the experience of Nakba, which you know, that catastrophe in 1948, which saw the exit of so many Palestinians who left their homes and couldn't come back, that left a traumatic trauma for the Palestinian psyche. And I don't have the rest of it, but this gives you a clue of why she's using science fiction.
Is it also, I mean, I'm wondering something, but science fiction, it's usually really Western. So using a Western media to present something Eastern, I mean, it's something that challenges our own idea of the word as well.
It's cool. To be honest, it's cool because it speaks. It's universal. For example, this one, I don't have the time to show you the film, and you can find it online if you want. But it's an adaptation of 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, and it's so interesting because the video is starting with a lot of with different appropriations and adaptations. For you have the flag, you have the Palestinian flag in here. You have it on the suit, the space suit. She's wearing high heel babouche.
Mm-hmm.
She's also you at the beginning of the video you have a music, you have the music of 2001, but from made with Zaharid. You know I
Yes.
can say that, but you know what it is.
Yes.
And so it's quite interesting because it's little adaptations of something everyone knows, but from another perspective.
Yes. So it's an interesting point. We talked on Tuesday about giving a different perspective to issues or to things we already know, and that's something that I mean, Larissa Sansur is doing with this movie. I see.
Yeah, and it was quite an entry into the field because this film is a short movie. Everyone loved it. Everyone. It speaks to everyone, and it's great because most of the time people are afraid of contemporary art because they don't get a thing about it. It's too much. It's too conceptual. It's too much experimental. It's a bit cryptic. And with this example, it was easy. It's easy. It's still easy. This video is still very successful because it's working.
Yeah.
So other examples are, for example, this series of performances made by Halim Karabiben. Halim Karabiben is a Tunisian artist. He's living between Tunis, Berlin, and a bit in Paris, but I think he prefers living in Berlin and in Tunis. And he made this he started this series of performance in 2007. And so he went to a gallery opening in Tunis from a modern artist, a very classic one. And he distributed this postcard you can see on the left. And this postcard was documenting the opening of National Museum of Modern and Contemporary.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. There's Luis
Luis.
joining us. Hello, Luis.
Hi, Luis.
Hi.
Hey, I'm very sorry. I thought it was just the calendar was wrong.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's
Sorry.
okay.
I hope everything is good.
Yeah. Everything's fine.
Okay, sorry. So we were talking about so I will let you present what Joan.
Yeah, so Luis, you didn't miss that much. I was presenting different artists dealing with science fiction in their creation. So I started, maybe you know Larissa Sansor. She made this video entitled The Space Exodus, in which she adapted Stanley Kubrick's film 2001. It's online if you want to watch it. It's comment on dit?
Watch it.
It's easy to find it on YouTube. You don't have to pay anything. So I was talking about a Tunisian artist, and in 2007 he distributed he kind of hacked a gallery opening in Tunis by distributing this postcard on the left, saying that a National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art of Tunisia, which is not existing, which doesn't exist, and it's still you don't have a National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art in Tunisia still today. So saying that this is a museum which will open in 2069, and it has the shape of une cocotte minute. I don't know how to say that, but you know the thing you're using to cook.
Yes.
And yeah, so it was a bit absurd, but and you know he continued. I think he did that for 7 years because he after that he created an army of cultural soldiers who will defend the museum. You can see pictures on the right. So he took photos of artists and cultural agents living in Tunisia, armed with absurd arms, and so to defend the culture of Tunisia, which was falling at that time. It was linked with, of course, with the Tunisian Revolution, which started in 2010. And you can see one of the last performances he made on below. It's an invitation of an exhibition opening to a very unique exhibition entitled Cocoterie and Co. Cocoterie is the name of the cooking machine. I don't know how to say that in English, but anyway, it is very funny. It's quite interesting to see he did that during 7 years. If you are just browsing his website, you will see everything he did with photographs, and it's quite.
So he mixes photographs and other techniques.
Photographs, performance. He did a lot of performances. He did movies. For example, I will talk to you about Super Tunisian after that. But Moufida Fedila, which is another Tunisian artist, decided to be Super Tunisian, and she was wearing a cape in the city center during the revolution, and bringing all the citizens just to gather and to talk about the new elections, what we can do as for the new society, etc. And Halim Karabiben, as a soldier, went with Moufida Fedila as a super Tunisian in Paris in front of the Tunisian embassy just to protest together. So it's quite interesting how they are like continuing, and also they are, I don't know how to say that, but they are kind of meeting different worlds created in contemporary art.
So we can say there's always a political part. I mean, we saw that with the Palestinian artist before. We see with him as well. I mean, this idea of bringing back the Tunisian culture and to be part of the revolution as well. So there's always this idea that the artist is never alone. It's part of the society.
Not always. With global contemporary art, yes, there is, because it's easier, because these people are not showing their art in local art centers or museums. Sometimes they are, but for example, Mufida Fedila and Halim Karabiben were arrested or being bullied by the policemen when they were performing in Tunisia. They got letters saying that threats from anonymous persons, but it's easier for these people to show their artworks outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's also working, because using science fiction can talk to anyone, and it's also a way to swallow the pill.
It doesn't talk directly to the power in place. It talks to about another city, another something, but not about the power. So it's kind of a construct you use to masquerade.
Yeah, it is absurd. And maybe that's why it's working, because it's absurd. So censorship is hard to put on absurd things, but they are the strongest. According to me, it's the strongest way to express yourself. But this is also the thing with science fiction. It's you have a positive and a negative part, because it's easier to be very engaged, and it's also very trendy to do that. It's also now science fiction is very trendy. Before that, no one liked science fiction. Now it's like everyone is watching a sci-fi show on Netflix, or reading science fiction young adult books. You know what I mean? Now it's easier to deal with science fiction more than in the 80s or in the 90s.
Yes.
But since now we have Luis with us, maybe I should shorten my presentation.
Yes.
So I could
yes.
I could speak for hours, but I don't know. So maybe I will like just press the button and we will see other examples. Here I will be very brief. It's an article, not working as a manifesto, but kind of. Sofia Al-Maria, an American Qatari artist, and Fatima Al-Qadiri, a Kuwaiti artist, presented the Gulf futurism concept. This concept is quite interesting, because they decided to, because when they were in their teens, they were living in Qatar and in Kuwait, and they observed how the petro monies, the petrodollars, created new cities in the 80s or in the beginning of the 90s, and so they experienced the changement of both of their countries, and so they are like they are discussing this frenetic evolution from a urbanist development through this concept, and mixing retrofuturism, so old science fiction, with dystopia happening in both of their countries. I won't say more because it's quite complex, but and it's you have a lot of different artworks. And this article, if you're interested in, you can find it online on the Dazed and Confused digital platform. You just type Gulf Futurism, Sofia Al-Maria, Fatima Al-Qadiri, and you will find it. It's quite interesting.
Cool.
And so, oh no, I won't talk about it. But this piece is quite interesting because before the Egyptian Revolution, Maha Mamun created this film named 2026, and this film is an adaptation of La Jetée by Chris Marker and an Egyptian novel. Um, um, entitled Thawrat 2048, if I'm correct.
Yes,
I'm
this is
always struggling with numbers. And oh, it's written here. No, Thawrat 20. Yeah, she used the second one because it's two novel anyway. So she mixed two sci-fi stories. She mixed a French apocalyptic kind of sci-fi, because Chris Marker is, it's not sci-fi, but you know what I mean. It was dealing with the apocalypse in Paris after the during a fictive World War III, and the revolution happening in the novel of Mahmoud Othman. And it's quite interesting because she is mixing different sci-fi, different world of science fiction. Anyway, super Tunisian. So here is she. I won't talk about her, but it was kind of the first performances in the public space in Tunisia, and it was quite interesting because she made a lot during that time, and it was hard. Anyway, let's move on. Hayam Jabber did an amazing series of photo collage in Syria, documenting the collapse of Damascus at that time, but saying that it was not Bashar al-Assad regime who did that. It's an alien invasion. So you have like 30 different pictures. It's quite funny, not funny, but there is a lot of dark humor in it. And they're quite lovely. Anyway, and this is the last part of this presentation, and I'm going very fast, but this is, I just wanted to speak about some artists who started using science fiction from the beginning. And these artists are younger. They were born in the 90s, and they're not always used it, but they are mostly using it. So here you have French artists, Tarek Lahrisi, Mounir Ayash, Sarah Sadek, who decided to deal. For example, Sarah Sadiq and Tarek Lahrisi were talking about how the Arabs are perceived in France from the suburbs. So there is this culture, this Beur culture. This I don't know how to say that in English, but this very specific culture of Arab people living in France in suburbs. And Mounir Ayash it's different, but I don't have the time to talk more. Go online, go and
the idea of this panel is to give us ideas to cultivate ourselves as well. So that's very good to have like the names so people can Google them and go and fetch them. And I have one question. Is there a difference between people having and doing art in the Arab world and people outside the Arab world, and coming from different areas? Like you talk about the Arab in France, and they mostly come from the Maghreb as well. And I think their issues might be, in my, I don't know, different than people from Palestine, for example. The issues are not the same. The problems are not the same. The culture is not the same as well.
Yeah, you're totally right, and the art worlds are not the same at all. So yeah, you're totally right, and I don't know if we have time to talk about it, but yes, we have different representations. You have different mediums, medias. For example, the image in the middle, Mounir Ayash did that installation when he was a fellowship at the Villa Medici. La Villa Medici, oui, the Villa Medici in Rome. So he was paid to do that. And Sarah Sadek is living in Marseille, in France, and she also went to the fine art school in Paris. No, not in Paris, in Bordeaux. And she knows very much how contemporary art is working in France. And so she also used different codes to create and to put forward her representation of la banlieue, la cité, this kind of thing. So yes, you're totally right. This is not the same representations. This is not the same art world, and people can't. In Egypt today, it's possible to you have video. You have societies and private institutions who are promoting the use of artificial intelligence in contemporary art. For example, Maha Mahamoun, the Egyptian artist who did that, she directed, not she participated in a seminar in Cairo to teach new students how to use video, artificial intelligence, etc., in their work. But these are private
institutions.
Yes, this is not public at all. But still, if you want to create, you can.
Yeah. And is it easier to create online than on a public space?
Yes, but even if you're creating online, you need to show your pieces. And for Hayam Jabbar, no, it's not this one. This one, Hayam Jabbar went famous online because he was in Syria when he did that, and it was impossible for him to leave the country. So, and he was to be honest, he was not an artist. He was a video editor for a public channel, TV channel at that time, and sometimes with the curfew and stuff like this, stuff happening in Syria at that time, and still today. It depends where you are, but anyway, he did that because he was bored. He started doing that because he was bored, and so he posted it on social media and on Behance, and it went crazy because some people in Germany saw that and they decided to print it and to exhibit it in a small art center. After that, people saw his art and decided to show it, and it went crazy. Anyway, I think it's time for me to zip it.
Yes. So I don't know if you have questions, Luis, for what or comments of what you've seen of these artists' work.
I am surprised because I didn't know any of this, and I'm happily surprised. I would like to know more about all these projects. And I think what I'm going to show is completely different. Another universe. And
Yes.
and also I'm not going to show like I think what would be we could do at this point is like maybe I can show you what I brought, and then we put them together, and then we see how they talk to
Yes.
each other.
Do you want just to introduce yourself a little bit for our viewers?
Sure. My name is Luis Carlos Barragan. I am from Colombia. Right now I'm in Santiago de Chile. And I am a writer. I'm mostly a writer. I write science fiction novels and short stories. And I also paint. I studied fine arts. So I come from that world of the museums and contemporary art and video art and those things. And then at some point, I just got tired of it, or I didn't feel like I fit, like the things I wanted to express didn't fit in that world. And I wanted to do something more simple. I just want to paint like spaceships and aliens and monsters. And I just want to have fun. I don't want to be like the smart artist that shows the work in the museum and it's hard to understand and all those complicated processes. I just got away from the museums and I started doing this like very simple, fun, happy paintings. And I ended up painting artworks for book covers, posters, and those sort of yeah, that part. I also did a master's degree in Islamic art and architecture. So I am also sort of related to the Islamic world. I lived in Cairo for like 4 years, but I was working with medieval art. Like, so it would be interesting to see how that relates. But I guess that requires more study. Yeah, so I studied Islamic medieval art, like paintings and book, like manuscript paintings, and also architecture, like mosque and palace architecture from the Middle East, but also from India and also from Iran, especially
Yes.
Iran. Yeah, so that's me.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So you have a presentation for us. I mean, you will show us some pictures of artists from Colombia and of things you draw yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. So give me a second and I'll
Yes.
share it.
Yes.
Oh, it's already sharing. Sorry. Presentar, compartir pantalla. So what
You
I'm
should
gonna
have-
do, yeah, I'm sharing now. So I'm gonna do something very, like, I'm not very formal, okay, compared to what Joan was doing. I'm gonna just, like, this was a very, also because we didn't want to have like a very long presentation. I'm gonna show you a little bit of what happens in a popular, like in popular culture, especially not done by big artists. I'm not thinking about big artists, and then I'm just gonna show you what I'm doing. I'm gonna show you a lot of that, and then I'm gonna show you a project, which is a bigger teamwork that I did with some indigenous guy who was directing a project of science fiction for virtual reality. So I wanted to start with this. Also thinking of what you were saying of how before science fiction was not that common in the Middle East, it was also not that common in. I mean, maybe consumption was common, but production or thinking in terms of fantasy or science fiction was not common during the 90s and during the early 2000s.
It was more an imported culture.
Yeah, you could say that in a way. Like, people are consuming like Terminator and The Matrix, but
Yes.
no one is making things like that.
Local.
But if
Right.
you think of Latin American literature before, in the 70s, in the 80s even, we have the magical realism, right? We have like a lot of writers that are writing things that are fantastic, like fantasy stuff, like things mix of reality where some magical events happen, and there was an explosion of imagination at that time. And then, probably because of our history, that imagination stops, and the 90s and the early 2000s are a period of realism, of extreme realism, both in literature but also in cinema. So you would have, so this is what I'm talking about, like, in the middle you have the paramilitaries, which were uh, defining many features of the history of Colombia, as well as displaced people. A lot of displacement produced both by the paramilitary and by the guerrillas. So our country was a mess. And also, we had a lot of drug dealers, drug lords, and all of these things were connected. Like the drug lords, the drugs, the war. We've been having a war also for like 50 years, and the things that people were talking about were those things, like how people suffer, how people kill each other, how people live in the streets. There was a feeling of no future. Actually, there's a movie from 1991 called Rodrigo the No Future. So the aesthetic characteristic of Colombia at that point. So I'm going to talk especially about Colombia because it's the case that I know the best. Is a history of, or it's like a aesthetic of poverty, aesthetic of violence, of no hope, of no future. So it's like all the opposite of futurism in any possible form. So what? So this is where what I saw when I was growing up, sadly, and I got in contact with a lot of um, like music and art and stuff that was being done at that time. And I also saw how there was like a transformation in the way people thought. And this is something that is very recent, the late 2000s, and also this decade has been a decade of imagination in Colombia. So there's a lot of people doing things, and I'm just going to be talking about like very popular art, um, like street art, graffiti, for example, has been a major thing in Colombia, and it has been like exploding in imagination, like exploring like deities, gods, aliens, creatures, and also the people of Colombia, like portraying the people of Colombia, uh, like the different ethnicities, the different types of different types of people that live there, and that has been interesting because it's a shift even in the color palette. Now you take that and go to the coast of Colombia, which is more tropical. It's the coast of Colombia is more like happier. It's by the coast. While Bogota, like all these paintings that I'm showing you, are from the mountain, which is colder. So if you go to the coast, they have these influences from music from Africa, like stronger music from Africa, even from the colonial period, and then also a contact with, because of trade, with music from Western Africa, contemporary Western African culture. And from that you have like different types of music, and this kind of music has been mixed with electronic music. So that became major also. And you see that not only in like bands, like here we have a band called Ghetto Cumbe. They play like traditional Colombian music from the coast mixed with electronic music. That has become so important that it's just now part of pop culture in Colombia. Like everyone is listening to these bands like that. And also there's like a popular culture in that area of something called pico. Pico is what you're seeing on the right, which are like locally made speakers, very very large, and painted with a lot of the psychedelic colors. There are like contests of pico where you have like a DJ with his own homemade pico battling another DJ, and this is a culture from there. And these things have slowly become more futuristic, and now you have several bands that have visuals like this one to the left is Sistema Solar. This one became very famous actually. It's called Solar System, and
Oh yeah.
and they bring all this culture of the pico, and then they elevate it, and they made amazing music, and their videos are full of futuristic elements. And this is the cover art of one of their albums. And you can see like the images when they're in a concert. They also display like these images that are very futuristic, but they're not the typical futurism. There are like a poor futurism where you have, like, for example, this guy that you see here in this video. This is a video from this is old. This is from like 2000, maybe 2010, something like that. It's like an astronaut, but the kind that you see in Colombia, like doing this for money. So they stand by the street, and this is a common sight. They look like astronauts, and you put like a coin, and then they move, right? I think you can see those things in France as well. I think I saw something like that. And then they just use this and like mix it with the local culture. So I think this is one interesting thing that has been happening. This is like a festival of that kind of music. Is called Invasion. So this idea of futuristic stuff, but mixed in a very strange way with Colombian things, are a thing. And then you have like the next level of that, and here you have the visuals. This one is for an album that they have called the Revenge of the Donkey, but the donkey is robotic. and then you have the latest album, I think, which is called Primitive Future. And this is where I am going to stop talking about these things, and then I'm going to show you what I'm doing. So there is like a thinking process that is happening that is related to post-colonialism about what is it that we're going to be in the future, what is our future. And also part of this anti-colonial movement has been like a rejection of the typical Western USA, UK type of science fiction that has been like the classics, right? So how do we make this future of ours? And the cool thing that has happened is that a lot of people are thinking in alternatives. A lot of people are thinking like, how can we build a future that is not capitalist, that is not about the destruction of our planet, and that we can enjoy? And this is what a lot of people are doing. I'm not showing you any artists, but it's because most of this has been like the work of a lot of institutions, both like publishing houses and also like public institutions in Medellin, for example, and in Bogota, where they are doing festivals of futurisms, and they invite people like me. They have invited me to give some workshops, or they are trying to promote it somehow. It's like there are artists, and then these people are trying to showcase it, and they're trying to promote it, trying to create it also. So there's a lot of people thinking in these terms. When I started painting, when I left the academia of fine arts and this kind of contemporary art, I started thinking of I want to create like the images of this futurism, and I went very into like this indigenous futurism, like going through that kind of thinking of the how can we create a future that is ours, that is not European, for example, because because of the colony, because of Eurocentrism, it's like all the futures that people imagine are related to this futuristic or this modernist ideas of the West, that are this modernist project of going to the Jetsons kind of future, which has been a disaster. So I started doing things like this and things like this, where I was like, how can we imagine? Because this is what I was thinking when I started painting. Like, all our images in Colombia are about the realism, are about our reality. So how can we create images of our territory and our characters that are imaginative? That how can we restore our imagination? This is what I was trying to do at the beginning. So I created these things where I use like characters, indigenous people from the Amazon or from any of those regions. Or I started thinking like, what if they exist in the future, or some elements of this pre-Columbian culture remain in the future. So I took some elements from the Gold Museum, like those pre-Columbian art elements, started working with that, trying to work with colors and trying to create like worlds, a fantasy future and science fiction worlds with those elements, with those jewels, with those means of those cultures before the colonization. And I did a lot of those things. This is one of those. This is part of like I was trying to make a book, like an illustrated book, like bringing those elements. This one is also part of that, and this is also sort of part of that, but then in another spectrum, because I also started like questioning myself, like what authority do I have to produce this futurism? And I started feeling that I was actually romanticizing those cultures, and I'll tell you like why I'm starting to think that those futurisms can also be problematic. So this is more like when I don't do those things, and I try to like not romanticize these cultures and try to use our world, our real Colombian world, and make it into a sci-fi world. So I started creating monsters. I started taking like characters from our streets. This is like the typical fruit vendor in the street, but what if he has like a special machine? This is very clear, very closely associated with our political history of protests against the government also. And all of these things I started doing more as commissioned work. So these are all commissioned work for books. This is for an album cover of a band. But I feel I have like I have been developing my work through those commissions. This
They're
is
very
also, what?
They're very impressive.
I'm glad you're impressed.
And
This
Luis,
is also,
if I can add something, can you just tell us how you're creating them?
how do I create them? I'm mostly using Photoshop and a painting, like a drawing pad, digital drawing pad, a Wacom Cintiq. And when I create them, I mean, it depends on the commission. If it's a commission, if it's not a commission, I just have ideas when I don't know, like they just come to me.
Oh no, I was talking more about the technicals.
Okay.
So you're using Photoshop and your pad. Are you like painting with painting or
Brushes and
It's digital painting. All of it is digital.
painting?
Like
Yeah.
I go straight to the drawing pad and I start doodling.
Thank you.
So that's what I was trying to create, like this integration of this is the kind of buses that we have in Bogota. This guy is wearing a t-shirt from a local football club, and this guy is like attacking the bus because also we have a lot of security problems in Bogota, and that is very it's a big problem. There's a lot of mugging and attacks on people for their money, and also they attack buses and they attack businesses. So I was just trying to put that reality into this sci-fi world where it's sort of the same, but it's in the future. Following that, also I also ended up doing this other book covers. This is a book cover for a book, an anthology of science fiction in Latin America. And here, like, everything is sort of combined because it's also like a Latin American robot with this female figure. She's like a cholita, like a traditional Bolivian or Ecuadorian or Peruvian like farmer woman, which are very important in the Andes region. And then I started thinking of how this kind of art. So I'm always like in a pendulum, like swinging from, is this okay? Like, can I take these images? And sometimes and this one became very popular. This is like thinking that the Latin American women can have power when all the context is against her, or all the context of Latin American history is also against indigenous people. So I started thinking, like, if you consider these things, maybe it makes sense to make these representations. And I also did this two posters. These are also posters for a fantasy workshop for cinema. So there is like a big laboratory for screenplay writing, and it's all about fantasy. So it's like a lot of people are thinking about these things. Like, I feel, and we're all getting to know each other also. And I also know it's not happening just in Colombia. It's happening in a lot of places in Latin America, where you have both illustrators and artists and also writers and publishers that are all interested in this because it feels new, although it's not completely new. I mean, there was science fiction even in the 19th century in Latin America. It's just that it never caught up. It never became popular as it is becoming now. Like, people are more interested, for sure. This one, for example, it's a painting I made for the cover of a book that was edited here in Chile. So they were doing an anthology of science fiction in Chile, and they hired me to paint this one. So it's a colonial town, similar to Cartagena, for example, in this, this kind of cylinder spaceship. And this was, and I also paint my own books. I have published 4 books. I like painting my own books, and I also have these things in my writing. Like it is about this. It is about what is it. What happens when you put under development and science fiction, and how can we reimagine our own futures and our own societies? This one, and this is the most recent one, I think. I made it for also a festival, a film festival that is also interested in. They asked me this, like, our film festival is about like solar punk ideas and community stuff, like community based projects of art and cinema. So they asked me to do something like some kids working together, and I thought maybe making music. And then you have the typical colonial town of all Latin America, but then with like some technological things. And also sometimes I don't paint any of these things. Sometimes I go into the weird, and I feel very happy to just leave this very politicized stuff and go into more weird territories of more like aliens and creatures and entities. And this ones have been, this is a book cover, this is a book cover, this is a book cover. So I'm basically, my project is like painting all the book covers of Latin American sci-fi that I can. And this one is also posters for those screenplay workshop of fantasy screenplay cinema. And all of them have been very colorful and going into these other worlds of like aliens and creatures. So why has this been happening? Like, why are people so interested in the future? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is like a trend, like a global trend, and maybe it's just related to the amount of technology that we're consuming now, and like how close we are to science and technology. But also in the context of Colombia, I have the feeling that there's one event that changed everything, which is the signing of the peace treaty in 2016. Because after that happened, I mean, we had been in a war for 50 years. And when people started talking about peace, that was like, okay, so for a brief moment, everyone started thinking, so what is the country that we can build together? Like, what is the future that we can build from here? And I have the feeling that that's where the explosion happened. So there is an explosion. I'm not showing you everything. I'm just showing you my work. But all these works are commissions for people interested in science fiction that ask me to do these things. And there's a lot. There's a lot of people doing things. And a lot of institutions, especially, doing these things. So I was thinking maybe it's related to this, to this point in which there seems to be hope. There seems to be some hope in the future. And this institutions start building these projects of what is the future like? What kind of future do you want? And also rebuilding the memory, like who died, why did they die, where did they die? So there's an institution doing that after the war. Of course, the war is still ongoing. So this peace treaty didn't really solve anything. There's still a lot of problems, but a lot of things happened because of that. I was gonna include more things. I only included like one festival of sci-fi cinema. This is another one. So there's a lot. Another film festival of sci-fi mixed with horror, like with horror stuff. And then I'm gonna end this showing you the project that I worked with. This one went to a museum. So this is the different one. This is a project called Future Codex, Códice Futuro. And it was directed by a guy called Elder Tobar, who is of indigenous origin. He is from the Cauca region in the south of Colombia. And he started a project asking people, what do you expect from the future? Or what kind of future do you want? He was also asking that. And then people everyone was sort of not happy with the prospect of this techno-capitalist future where we just consume and the only thing we get in the future is like a better iPhone or something like that. And they went to this idea of how indigenous people see time. So apparently in the community where he was raised, they don't see time as a line from past to future, but as a spiral. So the present is very important, and things are like constantly moving around and turning around, and there is no need for this obsessive idea of a future where things are better than they are today, like this modernist project. We did a lot of things. I created, so it was a virtual reality project where you have like an experience in which you go to a spaceship, but this spaceship is not out in the, like, it's not out there to conquer other worlds. It's inside of you. It's the spaceship that you already have inside. So it's a very spiritual thing. It's a very hippie spiritual thing. It was like, for me, it was very inspired in like psychedelic experiences, and the way these experiences work in those communities. And I was in charge of designing the spaceships, so that was my job. So I just have pictures here of the process of how I created it, and then I'm going to show you a video of the virtual reality experience. So this is like concept art, bringing together like the aesthetics of textiles from indigenous cultures and transforming that into like this technological objects. We even use the spiral in everything. This is the staircase that has like this gravity on the side, so you can walk around it. And I have a video, but I don't know if you can hear it. So how about I play it and you tell me if you can hear it, okay?
Yes.
Can you hear it?
Yes. Not very well, but we can.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. That's an interesting project.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Maybe we will be
The
able
work.
to continue. Yeah. That's it. I don't have anything else to show.
I have one question for you both. You told me that actually there was a regain in interest in science fiction lately, which is fun because in the Western world we have a regain in interest in fantasy, which deals more with the past. And I've seen that in the West, in the East, with the Chinese science fiction, the Arab science fiction, and now the South American science fiction, you have this more. People tend to look more at the future than at the past. While in Europe and in America, for now, we have this. Even when it's science fiction, sometimes it goes into fantasy or steampunk. So this nostalgic of a past Europe that was strong, for example, with the medieval. I think of Game of Thrones. I think of all the series that are coming out on Netflix that are really rooted into the past, and especially the European past. And
well,
I mean, the other part of the word is looking forward.
It's in the title.
Yeah.
Futuristic postcolonialism. Well, it's not only this, it's a huge part. It's a huge part, but it's also a way to just represent whatever you want in a safe, not a safe place, because I hate saying that, but in a place, if you have the mean, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for you, Luis. What do you think about it?
I didn't really think too much about it, because I didn't notice that. I mean, yes, I noticed that Game of Thrones and fantasy and those dragons and those medieval things are important, but I have the feeling that they have always been there, like when the Lord of the Ring came, at the same time the Matrix came. So I don't know. I didn't notice that Europe or USA were
It's
thinking.
mostly, if you see in the literary scene, you see it way more than in the visual art part, I think. When you go to a bookshop and you see most of the books that are coming out now about fantasy and science fiction, you will see a lot of things dealing with past civilizations more than the future civilizations. I think, for my part, I think there's this, especially in, I know more the Arab world than South America, but I think people in the Arab world have to have faith in a better future, whereas in Europe there's this nostalgic regain of the past. I mean, we see it politically now, for example. We have this, and the fact that, for example, far right is retaking fantasy as part of their culture. For example, using the Vikings, using Lord of the Rings, for example, in Italy, the Lord of the Ring exposition in Italy was made by the far right, for example, which is weird. So I think that that politics plays a huge role in that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Europe of today is such a mixed society, right? Like it's a very cosmopolitan, and you see people from all the world. So you can imagine that fascism would use that past to say we were before, when we were the more pure Europeans or whatever they think, and they see these other people as foreigners and not Europeans. And I can see that happening. Whereas maybe in the global South, we are with a lot of challenges of like, we have no idea, I mean, some people of course have wonderful golden ages, like the Chinese have a lot of previous golden ages, the same with Indians, and the same with the Incas, and the same with the Aztecs in Mexico. But these are
civilizations as well.
Yeah, but these are not projects necessarily built on those racist or ideas, maybe. And it's more like, are we going to continue this future that we're building right now of just consuming, and this technology is about that? Or, because I also have the feeling that there's some, I mean, I suppose some people who have hope, or who use this to imagine a hopeful future, they're also imagining a lot of things, as in anarchy, as in having self-sustainable societies, and sometimes it feels like just an idealism. Like a lot of people are having this idealism, like, oh, it would be great if we just don't need a state, and we
we don't need money, we don't need
yeah.
Solar
there's a strong idealism right now.
Yes,
but I feel it's I don't know if it's a facade. I don't know if people will actually do something. There are very strong movements in Latin America against power, against the far right, against the traditional society. And in the previous years, in 2019, 2021, there were very strong movements of people that don't want this system, and they gather and they do things. And these futurisms, all of them seem to go in that direction. Like, like alternative futures, solar punk, for example, anarchy, futurism. Maybe it's something related to that.
Cool. So I don't know if the public has questions. I mean, it's been 1 hour and a half in 10 minutes. So I asked the questions. I asked the public if they have questions, but I don't see any. So thank you very much for having been with us. I don't know if you want to add anything to what you're.
No, I think we should just keep in touch because it's quite interesting what I just saw right now, and it would be great to continue this conversation later.
Yes.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, yes, we have 1 hour and a half. So it was really interesting to have you both. 2 different kind of prospects, but at the same time, really interesting topics, and 2 kind of post-colonialism, South America and the Swana region, that I think have more in common than not. And so for our viewers, we will see next Thursday or Thursday, no, I don't remember, to 24th, for translating Arabic science fiction into European languages. We will have an American translator and a Mexican translator. So how we adapt science fiction from a culture into another culture. And I thank you both for having been with us, and let's keep in touch. And for the viewers, I have just one thing. I wanted to announce that Luis' book will be translated into French.
Yeah.
So do you want just to present your book in 2 words?
Oh, sure. So the book is called The Worm. It's a book in which people's skin is no longer a frontier. It's not any longer a boundary between people. So people can start merging. It's like a weird event. No one knows why it's happening. So if you merge with a person, you can get out through like someone's back if you want. Like you can go across a person and you acquire like the characteristics of the person. Like you can exchange your teeth or your eyes or your thoughts or your ideas, and people become very scared of losing their identity. So that's the
plot.
That's the plot.
The pitch. Cool.
So when will it be released?
What?
And in a while, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yes.
By the way, Luis, did you translate your book in English?
No, I haven't.
I need to go back to my Spanish.
Well, it is translated into Persian for some crazy.
I prefer Spanish, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you speak some Spanish? Do you read some Spanish?
It was my second language, so I can read it, but I can't speak it anymore. Yeah. Well, if I'm going to a Spanish country, to a Hispanic country, Hispanophone country, I can maybe.
Yeah, it's
not so hard.
Yeah, cool. It shouldn't be hard to read. I mean, I can read a little bit of French.
Yeah,
it's not that hard.
I had 6 years of Spanish, so I think.
Perfect. Then I can send you the book. Yeah, I can send you.
Cool. I'm ending the stream. If you want to stay online, we can stay online a little bit. But
I just want to make, before that, just one quick announcement. If the audience liked Larissa Sansur, she will be tomorrow in Paris. Actually, she is in Paris right now. But tomorrow night, we will screen 2 of her films, to In Vitro and Familia Phantom, and I will have a discussion with her at the Arab World Institute in 9 p.m. If you're in Paris, if you want to meet, it will be a pleasure.
For those that are in Paris, it's an occasion you don't have to lose. Would like to be there. I'm just in another city, so in France, but very far. So thank you very much, and have a good night. So up.
Yeah. Good night.